I served in Vietnam for 18 months. I had 5 buddies, very close buddies, who died there. 3 of them 30 feet away from me at one point. When I came back, I said, that's it, Vietnam's over. That was a little phase of my life like college, and now that's gone. I'm moving on with life. Little did I know one of the dots from here to there that I had no clue about. I don't know if you've ever been to the Vietnam Wall or the Traveling Wall, but it's about 600 feet long. The panels are 12 feet high, 58,000 names on that wall of people who died in Vietnam. So I think it was my second visit to the wall. Things from Vietnam started coming up about 15 years ago, and more and more and more, and I had no idea what they were about to start with. So I happened to be back in DC area on a business trip, and I said, well, I'll go to the wall, look up my buddies. It happened to be Veterans Day. I didn't plan it that way, but it was Veterans Day, the busiest day of the year there. In fact, I got there about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I would guess there were 1,000, 2,000 people already there, something like that. I saw people with their hats and on their lapels wearing my division pin, where people that I conceivably was there at the same time with. But I was not there to talk to anybody. I was there for my own purpose, to pay honor to my buddies. And I looked up 4 of them, and I was getting ready to leave, and I forgot, oh, I didn't look up Peter Bushy yet. And so if you've ever been there, they've got this book, and the only way to find the name is look alphabetically, find the name. That tells you the panel and the line that it's on, and then you try to find it. In fact, the first time I went there, it told me that Jimmy, Joe, and Dave were on panel 83 or whatever it was, west, and it was down the 5th line. And I looked at that, and I looked at it, and I looked at it, and I could not see their names anyplace. Of course, their names were there, but I didn't want to see their names there. And it took me a minute and a half or so to finally say, oh, there they are. So I'm there on this second visit. I go back to the book to look up Lieutenant Bushy, and there are 2 teenage kids looking at the book and thumbing through it. And I'm thinking, hey, this is my book. What are you guys taking my time for? Well, now maybe there was an uncle or a father. That didn't cross my mind that they might have been looking for. There was a man standing just about arm's length away from me. He had on the division pin, the same division that I was in. A division is 10,000 people. And so I turned to him and I said, were you at Cu Chi? And he said, no, I was at Dao Tieng. Well, that's 20 miles away. We get talking. His name's Wayne Chamberlain. Wayne lives 35 miles away from DC. He never comes there on a busy day. Duh, this is Veterans Day, and he's there at the wall on Veterans Day. We find out that we were there in Vietnam at about the same time, back and forth. And I told him that I had to leave. As soon as I looked up a person, I had to leave and go up to Baltimore and get a flight back to Portland again. And finally the kids left, and I said, well, I need to look up Lieutenant Bushy. And he said, Peter Bushy? And I said, yes. He said, I was with him when he died. 2,000 people there. I talked to one. And this guy is with Peter Bushy when he's killed in Vietnam. What are the odds of that happening? Just phenomenal odds against something like that happening. The entire trip back, I'm thinking, what if I had stopped for a cup of coffee? What if those kids weren't standing at that book? What if I had found a different parking place? What if I'd looked up Peter's name first on there? Why did this happen to me? What am I supposed to learn from Wayne Chamberlain, who I've never seen in my life before, standing there, and I only look up one name? And Wayne was with him when he died. There's a long flight back, I guarantee you. I'm thinking of all the different scenarios. Other than the coincidence, Pam says there's no coincidences. Other than the coincidence, it didn't have a huge impact on me at that point. Except, I thought, man, I got to find out, did Red make it home alive? Because Red was really chopped up badly in a mortar attack. And we didn't know if he lived to get out of the country or not. And it took me a long time to remember Red's last name, because we knew each other by first names or different things like Red. And I said, I've got to find him. And I searched and searched and searched the internet and couldn't find him anyplace. And somebody said, well, you know, if he was wounded, the VA would have a record on him. So I called the VA in Seattle. You know what they said? Privacy. We can't tell you. I said, will you do me one favor? Will you look and see, do you have a Wecer, W-E-C-E-R, in the system? Tap, 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 tap. Yes, we do. I said, is he alive? Tap, 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 tap. Yeah, he is. It just drove a stake right through me to find out that Red was alive and made it back. And I said, one more question. He said, I don't think so. I said, East Coast, West Coast, Central. He said, East Coast, and that's all I'm going to tell you. I can't because of privacy. I said, oh, you don't know what this phone call means to me to start with. And they said, oh, by the way, if you'd like to write him a letter, put it in an envelope, don't seal that envelope, and send it to us, and let us read it. And if it's not derogatory or anything like that, we'll send it on to your friend. That was in May. In October, I get a phone call. God, Richard, this is Red. Oh my God, I can't, where have you, give me a call, goodbye. Oh, my phone number. And he gave me his phone number and I called him back. And I had to be back in the East Coast. He lives in New Jersey. I had to be back there again. So I went back and drove to his hometown. And we were meeting at a 7-Eleven or something like that. And I got there early and I see this guy, much older than I remembered, jump out of this van. And I go over to shake hands with him. And all of a sudden these arms are around me, just hugging me. And I didn't expect that at all, but it made it worthwhile. Since then, we've found 30 other guys. We've had 5 reunions. 4 guys that I know, it absolutely changed their lives for the better because they're back together with friends who understand, who know what they're going through, where they're suffering, what they saw, what they did. They would never talk to anybody that doesn't understand those things. So we've had these reunions that they've been just phenomenal because Wayne Chamberlain was standing here beside me. A dot from there to here that I would have never thought for a second that meeting this guy would have led to all of this down the line and the ripples would have spread out to so many people and are still spreading because there are grandchildren, there are great-grandchildren now who are learning about their dad or their grandfather who died in Vietnam that we can tell them about. And we've done that. We've been in touch with their families and so on, and they are very grateful for that. So as you're sitting here today, just listening, if you're taking notes, that's fine. But think about, okay, well, wow, you know, Pam said this or did this, and you know what? That might have a tie to something 20 years ago in my life. Or look ahead. 6 months from now, you might be in a situation where you say, ooh, Pam said this, or Joy said this, or Jan said this in the meeting, or Mavis said this, and that applies to me now. So keep an open mind, like a sponge, so you can absorb these things, and just see where it goes from here.
Do you know a combat veteran who might be suffering from what he or she saw, experienced, or did? There is a possibility he or she is suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. There are many different potential symptoms. The Veterans Administration set up more than 200 vet centers around the country to help those with PTSD. You might suggest your combat vet look up the nearest one. A dedicated, trained staff knows what people with PTSD are going through and how to help. Your combat vet will find it's the safest place in the world